It is 7:32. Kenny Cunningham is with us. We haven't gone with the lead here. Kenny, good morning to you.
Not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
No, I thought you were a morning person.
I'm here.
Yeah.
The only part of that statement I agree was I'm here.
Here in body.
Are you not a morning person?
No, I'm all right, to be honest with you, yeah. No, I'm all right in the mornings. This is as good as it gets, actually.
Okay.
Slagging off my yogurt this morning as well.
We'll be the judge of that, though. How good you are. Don't worry. And the YouTube commenters will essentially decide. They're the ones who'll... before we get into the performance rankings, this is some fairly obvious stuff. Not in the green this morning, apart from an Irish goodbye, the Irish Oscar hopefuls. You weren't that surprised, though?
I'd hoped Barry Keoghan, obviously, and the Irish actors, I thought they'd have a fighting chance, but I wasn't surprised, to be honest with you. No, yeah, it would have been great, obviously, great recognition for them, but no, I wasn't hugely surprised.
You weren't a fan of Banshees?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the film itself, to be honest with you. The storyline, couldn't quite buy into the storyline. We were talking about it there previously, weren't we? I just didn't quite get the buy. And that was interesting, the relationship between the two kind of main characters, all those kind of similar tensions around the film was well shot and all that type of stuff. And yeah, but no, couldn't quite buy it. You've seen it, haven't you?
Yeah, I thought it was meh. It was like, film's meh.
Really, lads, yeah?
Film's meh.
Did you like Martin McDonagh's other works?
Barry Keoghan, very good. Well, I loved In Bruges. I thought Three Billboards was decent.
I liked it a lot. Seven Psychopaths, very
Haven't
good.
seen it.
It's
Haven't
very
seen
good.
it.
Yeah, it's worth
Went to see
watching.
Hangman in the Gaiety on Saturday night. I was like, this is much better.
Brilliant.
This is much better. No Paddy Wackery in this. Now, maybe if you're from the north of England, you're like, oh my God, look at all the cliches. But I don't know. So, Hangman worth going to see in the Gaiety, I would say.
Okay.
I haven't been into the theatre in a while, I've got to be honest with you. Yeah, you might be right. I'll keep an eye out.
Right.
Yeah, it's a disgrace. I think they've stung us, the Academy, haven't they? I mean, we were all there going, we're gonna sweep up. It's like...
Who did sweep up? Do you mind me asking? Usually
it was
somebody sweeps
Everything
up.
Everywhere All at Once has won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress,
Yeah.
I want to say. So it swept up. I think it was 8 awards in total? 7 or 8. 8 awards, I think. So
Brendan Fraser won for The Whale. And I don't know what else. That was basically it.
You said was a short film?
Short film, An Irish Goodbye was the winning short film, which is great because, like, you know, that's them all on the path now to massive careers. And I think the fact that Colin Kuhn was there and they've been there all week, like, you know, who knows where that's going to take everybody involved in that. But they felt comfortable. They looked comfortable. They looked like they were supposed to be there, and they weren't overawed by the occasion. So great for their careers as well. And I think, like, ultimately, you know, you're in the conversation,
Jared, isn't it? As long as you're in the conversation, people
that's all
are
that
talking
matters,
about you. Yeah. I think it's a win-win to some extent, isn't it?
This is the performance rankings, though. So let's start with. I'm going to run through these. BBC and Liverpool in red, Man United in amber, France and Ireland in the green. We're going to start with the green.
yeah,
I think.
We've only done this on special occasions, but it feels like a special enough occasion that we should flip the whole rules and put Ireland first in green, because it's probably the talking point of the morning. So, I mean, what a performance yesterday. Now, it was tetchy at times, and we got over the line, but yeah, I mean, Mac Hansen, will we start there? What do you say about him? I saw him getting 10 out of 10 in some player ratings yesterday, which was a rare thing to see. But
the player ratings, I think we can all agree the player ratings are now officially bullshit, because they gave Caelan Doris 5, even though he played like 12 minutes and produced one of the greatest moments of athleticism I've ever seen in a field of play from somebody in a green jersey. Like the steal and the subsequent, it was absolutely sensational. So I'm out on player ratings. If someone isn't on long enough for that, and no.
You give Matt Hansen a mark out of 10 then, in your opinion?
Hansen, I don't know. Hansen's a 9 or an 8, I think. But to give Caelan Doris
he's more than
5,
an 8. He's more than an 8, isn't he?
Well, I don't know.
He was near perfection.
He actually wasn't. Nathan Johns in the Irish Times is pointing out that he lost the ball several different occasions. But
near perfection.
It's high risk, you know. And I mean, I think Van der Fleer. Is that not a 10 for Van der Fleer? It's like, I'm going to throw the ball in now, and I'm also going to still be the number 7, and I'm also going to then be the hooker at the back of the mall whenever, because I've thrown it. I thought that was ludicrous.
Right?
They were pretty good. Also, Gibson-Park, it turns out, very, 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 very important to the
Brought
team.
a bit of control to the whole thing, didn't he, when he came on? Like, Conor Murray did brilliantly yesterday. But then when you see Gibson-Park coming off the bench, you're like, okay, this is good. We have some strength and depth.
I have to say, I think that the single most important thing in all of this is Andy Farrell. Like, so the players are great and the depth is great, but I don't know if you noticed during the week, and we're going to talk about this with Quinny, we've talked before on the show about Ireland got beaten by Scotland. I don't know if you remember this. Scotland scored 2 tries in the first 15 minutes, and then afterwards it emerged that we'd been late. The bus had been late. There hadn't been the right police escort or something. And Joe Schmidt made a big deal of this in the aftermath, and it was like, in fairness, he got his revenge in the World Cup when his Ireland team smacked Scotland down, and I'd say he used that as part of it. But this week, Andy Farrell spoke about, there was one time our bus got delayed when I was a player, and we got changed on the bus, and we got warmed up on the bus, and we came out and we crushed a great Leeds team because we just took it, we took it on the chin. We were prepared for all eventualities, and we welcome that. And all along, anytime one of our players got injured, like, yeah, great, somebody else going to get a chance. We thrive in adversity. We enjoy adversity. And then in the midst of everybody's collapsed, Andy Farrell's like, this is what we've trained for. This is it. This is your moment to shine. Yeah. Cian Healy, you get in there and you be a hooker. Now, there's a stroke of genius there which Bernard Jackman was the only person who I first saw explain exactly what was happening. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But I just think Andy Farrell is, he's approaching levels of...
I agree with you, yeah.
Emotional intelligence, tactical and technical planning, an ability to take in legends of the game as part of his backroom team and feel emboldened by the fact that he's leaning on them as opposed to... and that they're getting credit. He's not feeling in any way diminished by that. He's not protective.
Yeah.
I just think that Andy Farrell... This is Andy Farrell's win as much as anything that's ever happened in Irish rugby has ever been associated with one individual. The team was excellent, but it's him.
Yeah, I think he's hugely impressive, yeah. Every interview that he does, yeah. He kind of embraces it, all the pressure like you're talking, it kind of turns it around. We spoke about it before, Shan, I think, didn't we? No negatives there was always a positive spin, you know what I mean? Always setting targets, setting targets for the players and stuff. Yeah, it's great. It's great to see.
Control the controllables, and then when the uncontrollables happen, control them too. That seems to be the attitude he has. Nothing like they were talking about his halftime team talk yesterday. Speech was apparently very inspiring. But there were a disjointed second half, and then you're seeing so many players out of position. You're thinking, this is it. This is adversity. This is a game against Scotland where you have to win to keep the Grand Slam hopes alive. And they just rose to the occasion. Even Jack Conan didn't expect to be playing for that long, and he did brilliantly. Scores his try as well. There's just so many moments in that second half where you're thinking, right, this is brilliant. This is in Murrayfield as well. I mean, you're shutting up the crowd. And by the way, the weekend started with an 82 points to 7 trouncing by the under-20s on Friday night in Scottstown, and that was a sign that all is good in Irish rugby at the moment. I was reading the Scotsman paper this morning, their review of the match, and they're like, clearly there are some things in the Scottish underage systems that we aren't doing that the Irish are. So for that to be transferred then to the senior pitch at Murrayfield at the weekend was fantastic.
So what is that, Shane, in terms of the underage talent? Is that in terms of a bit of everything, like the talent pool is there? There's a quality of coaching, that environment thing, the whole thing from the top down, from the manager we've been talking about there. Does his influence extend his tentacles down into the 20s and beyond?
That's a very complicated question.
It's a bit of everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think primarily it's resource. There are almost endless resources in the schools where these players are part-time students and part-time rugby players from the time that they're in school, and that's producing players who are ready to step up to the Leinster Academy and the Munster Academy, and then when they play for Ireland at under 20 level, they've had a long period where they've been conditioned
as
to
professionals almost.
You'd have to say your style and the style of play is very progressive, and so it's capable of dealing with whatever the opposition are throwing at you. So it's not like we have one specific style of play and we're only ever able to do that. So it's definitely multifactorial, you would say.
Yeah.
The money that is available, because and the IRFU don't have to spend that money. The Leinster branch don't have to spend the money. It's schools that are spending the money, and so there's full-time coaches in the schools at a level that is unusual. Certainly, it's not replicated in many other sports.
By the way, it was 82-7, but it could have been triple figures, and Scotland probably deserved credit in the second half for not allowing it to get completely out of hand, although it was fairly out of hand. I was down at the IRFU High Performance Centre in Abbottstown recently enough for there was a press conference with Jack Conan and Simon Easterby, and that morning the 20s had played the seniors in a fairly no-holds-barred match, and they seem to do that reasonably regularly during the Six Nations, that they kind of give the 20s an opportunity to test themselves against the senior team. I presume Scotland do that as well, but I mean, I'm sure even in soccer level, under 21s play the seniors you'd imagine, fairly regularly. So
even at club football, I remember being in the reserves or around the youth team. You'd step up the first team manager would call the kids over for 11v11 as they would. They'd want to set up tactics. They'd need 11 bodies, and you go up there and be pretty intense. Maybe 15-20 minutes you'd kind of go at it, but great experience, for that small amount of time you're on the pitch with the senior pros.
Was that up against Vinnie Jones and Fashnu?
No, I was in my mid-20s by then, to be fair. But no, I just think it's great just to come up against them and just see how they operate, how they kind of carry themselves, and see the level where you need to be, the kind of strides you need to make, all of that type of thing. I know it's only a small thing, but yeah, I've watched a bit of that under 20. Didn't see a Friday night now, the other 20s game, but I've watched a couple of them previously. I've really enjoyed it. And almost to the point where you're like, whoa, you're looking out for it, the under 20s game, you know what I mean? Generally, traditionally, you kind of stumble upon that type of game, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Wouldn't be too much.
Well, there's a Grand Slam decider for them now as well on Friday night, so no doubt that'll be. That's already sold out. I think it sold out weeks ago.
Yeah, to win a second Grand Slam in a row, by the way, as well, which would be seriously impressive.
Many players. Many we lost. We lost a few players. I was running around yesterday doing the game here yesterday afternoon. I only caught a bit of the game in town. I met a friend of mine. I said it yesterday. The Man United game was on one big screen. The rugby was on there. A lot of hardy Scotsmen behind me. Wee, shouted. So it was all a bit of madness in there. Couldn't quite focus on either game, to be honest with you.
I think it's still to be decided exactly. In the immediate aftermath, Andy Farrell came out and gave a list of everything. Ronan Kelleher, it looks like, is gone. He seems to have suffered a recurrence of the injury that kept him out for a fairly significant portion of time, so that would be very worried about that. Obviously, there's no prospect of Gary Ringrose returning next week, so we're still waiting properly for an update on him. He said Doris probably would be okay to play, but again, that's in the immediate aftermath. You've got to wait until today to see how sore he is.
Minimum,
there was already a cast on Ian Henderson's arm, so he's definitely gone. That was a broken wrist. And then there was a couple of others after that who I wasn't sure about.
But would you really? Are you really kind of? I mean, it was a prior to the Welsh game. Was the first game of this thing in terms they were? I wouldn't say dropping like flies, but there's a few key pullouts there. Wasn't leading up, and a bit like you're saying about Farrell, no problem.
Yeah,
not an issue.
Yeah.
It's perfect prep for a World Cup.
Seamless,
you need these things to happen. Like nothing's going to go well. Nothing's going to go perfectly. Sorry, in a World Cup.
I think the team who gets the most luck with the injuries in the World Cup is the team who is left standing at the end, largely. Like if you end up with 2/3 of your first team still available for a World Cup semi-final, quarter-final, final, then you're probably going to be okay. Whereas if you get unlucky and 5 players go down in one game and there's already 2 or 3 missing, then you're probably screwed. So I think in the green, Ireland,
100%. And sorry, Robbie Henshaw returning as well.
Robbie Henshaw,
massive.
So, and they're going to absolutely need Robbie Henshaw now next week because Gary Ringrose is gone. Obviously, it was a horrific looking injury that Gary Ringrose suffered. So
Johnny Sexton gets to the equal Rogers points record. There he is holding the centenary quaich. Do any of you know what a quaich is?
Is that some Harry Potter?
That's Quidditch. Close enough though, Kenny. I like your method of thinking. It's actually an ancient Gaelic drinking vessel in Scotland with 2 handles that they apparently hand to the winner of the Ireland-Scotland Six Nations match every year. I mean, that had completely passed me by. But Sexton looked delighted to pick up the centenary quaich yesterday. So Ireland in the green, I think well deserved. So keep the comments on that win coming in. Also in the green, France. Now I'm just quite glad that we're not playing France next weekend and that it's England we're playing in Dublin, but France hadn't won in the Six Nations at Twickenham since 2005, and they kind of showed why and how they're number 2 in the world. A bit of a demolition job on England, 24-point lead at the break, and they run out very, very comfortable winners in the end. Antoine Dupont, Matt Dawson on BBC Radio 5 Live comparing him to Messi, Ronaldo, Zidane, and the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, yesterday. So that's not a bad comparison. Kind of sums up how well Antoine Dupont played in that game against France or against England. England just weren't at the races. The Marcus Smith risk at fly half just didn't seem to work. Conditions weren't great, but 53 points to 10. Bit of an embarrassment for Steve Borthwick and his England players.
Where do you stand, Kenny, on teams coming out and apologising to the fans afterwards? What's your take on because they've come out and they've apologised to the tickets at Twickenham, they ain't cheap. They're like the point was that they got so high that people were like complaining about the cost of tickets. Now the rugby crowd in England, traditionally they paid the money to go to HQ and sing their swing lows, and they were all happy enough with it. But
Yeah,
Players felt the need to
answer your
apologise.
question, I cringe a little bit, to be honest with you. Players and management, to be honest with you, I can understand it. It's an easy one. Gets you a little bit of credit, I think, with the fans. You know what I mean? But no, I do cringe. Fair enough. Come out. Look, that was unacceptable. And make sure that kind of never happens again. We're gonna, knuckle down, and some harsh words will be spoken, and
We're
that's
supporters
unacceptable.
too. Yeah.
That's unacceptable. We understand. I understand all that, but yeah, that kind of throwaway one in terms of on behalf of the players, we just like to. I'm cringing before I even hear the words, and I've given some abject individual performances like over the years when I played, but yeah, I could never quite bring myself to. Yeah, because it's not. You're going out there with the best of intentions, aren't you? And whatever you've prepared as best you can, and for whatever reason, it doesn't happen. You lose confidence during the game, and disillusionment, disappointment, all those things kind of set in and affect the performance. But it's never kind of a conscious thing, Jared, isn't it? In terms of that type of performance, which we've all put in, like individually at times. You know what I mean? You're beating yourself up. You feel as if you've let everybody down, but.
Yeah, it always feels a little bit like I apologise if I've offended you. Do you know? It's like it's not real.
Exactly. It's nothing,
Well, it happened on Friday night at Talca Park. Shells 0, Shamrock Rovers 0, and Graham Burke was involved in a bit of a tense exchange with some Rovers fans after the match behind the goal. A few words were exchanged, and some of the Rovers fans were letting him and his teammates know how they felt about the performance, the result so far this season. So
Rovers fans have had like a pretty unbridled period of success.
Yeah, do you get greedy then? You're so used to winning that you can't take not winning. Maybe.
Look, if something got said in the heat of the moment that you're apologising for, that's different.
Yeah.
So I didn't see the Graham Burke incident. I don't know what the outcome of it is. And it's okay for fans to have expectations, but I don't know, this whole England coming out and apologising.
Sorry, Jay, I was going to reference the kind of, just thought of it, the United Liverpool thing, wasn't it? There was a little bit of a commotion afterwards, kind of Varane, wasn't it?
Yeah.
On the pitch, made a big
You weren't
thing.
having this last week.
We mentioned, was it last, we were in here, weren't we? And even that for me, it's a little bit like you're saying, I'm sorry if I've offended, dragging the lads that you need to go out and acknowledge and clap the fans, but internally you're like, you're devastated, you're embarrassed by the performance and all, so not going out and clapping the fans. You know what I mean? Someone who goes out and kind of claps the fans, fair play to him, as opposed to the one who's totally devastated in the dressing room, totally embarrassed, feels like, that type of thing as well. It's not a little bit show. It's show a little bit, you know what I mean? That type of thing.
I'd prefer them to have played better during the game than now be like the ones who were rushing to have the Instagram post going, oh, sorry about that. We didn't quite fulfill our potential today, but we will be back. And other such positive aphorisms.
I never used to, be honest with you. I never
life.
remember clapping at any time coming off the football pitch. Very rarely. You probably prove me wrong now. You can Google or YouTube or whatever. But yeah, for that reason, that I never wanted that in my head.
When you were captain, though, it's different. Was it different? Did
Surely
you feel
Lansdowne Road, you would have clapped coming off different times. Kenny, I was in those crowds.
I don't remember.
No.
I've got to be honest with you. Only because of that. You start clapping, and then suddenly the week after, it's like, oh, he hasn't gone and clapped. Well, that's
Kenny, I was a little kid in those crowds. I was a little kid in those crowds who went there, drove down from Monaghan with my
He's thrown
dad.
that one in a few times, Jerry. He's thrown it out
all the way to the match, and you won't even clap us for coming down and paying for the tickets. My dad worked hard for those tickets.
Show, Jerry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fergus Keogh says, so annoying. We'll soon be expecting people to apologise for not apologising. This is true.
It's just the world we live in, isn't it? Yeah.
And we haven't even spoken about Gary Lineker.
Exactly. We'll get to that. We'll move on because there's some interesting stuff to come in the performance rankings. But in the amber, we'll briefly touch on Manchester United because, they're now 8 points ahead of Liverpool rather than 7 at the start of the weekend. But when you're home to the bottom team in the Premier League and you only come away with a point, it's disappointment, isn't it, really? It wasn't a great... Look, it was actually a decent 0-0. The positive probably coming out of it was Gavin Bazuna's performance. He was brilliant. Arguably man of the match for me. He kept out Bruno Fernandes in the second half with a lovely save to his bottom left, knocked it off the post and went out for a corner. Stopped Varane in the first half at one point as well. Rashford early on too. So Gavin Bazuna's performance would really give you confidence heading into that France game. But from Manchester United's perspective, Casemiro red card I think was the game changer. He now gets a 4-game ban from domestic action as well because it's his second red card in recent month or two. So I don't know what he's made of the incident, but Ten Hag not happy whatsoever.
What do you mean? What do we make of the incident of the most nailed on red card of all time?
I wouldn't call it the most nailed on red card of all time.
Oh, you're allowed to break people's chins now, are you?
He didn't.
That's totally legitimate.
But he didn't do that.
No, I mean it's a complete shin breaker of a tackle. You're not legitimately sitting here as a Man United fan saying he shouldn't have been sent off.
Anthony Taylor gave a yellow card at first glance. That was the referee's on-field decision.
Yeah.
And then the VAR go, maybe, have a look at that.
Yeah.
And then he gives...
We think that's one of the most egregious screw-ups that we've seen from a referee so far. You're going to have to go back and give him a red there, man, because that's idiotic.
Some of the tackles in the Chelsea game the day previous
what a
were
battery.
worse.
What a battery. Yeah, what a battery. Come on. But was it not a red? Are you honestly saying that wasn't a red?
I think a yellow would have been fair.
Would have been ridiculous. Honestly.
He's over the top of the ball.
He's over the top of the ball, and so how?
Well, he gets the ball and then comes over the top of it.
Yeah, because clearly he's tackled the ball at the top.
Look,
a circular round thing. If you kick it at the top, you're going to springboard like a trampoline. He trampolines off the football into the shit of the player.
Look, it wasn't.
And you're like, oh, he got the ball.
500 games in La Liga, and Casemiro never gets a straight red card, and all of a sudden he's 2 red cards in the Premier League.
Is he phoning it in? Is that your implication?
No, I don't think so. I think maybe the Premier League officiating is different to La Liga. He's not a dirty player generally.
Yeah, I think what he'll find down the Premiership, slightly quicker nature of the football over here. And as good a player that he is, if there's a small weakness in Casemiro's game, is his lack of athleticism in terms of being able to get around the pitch. And I think in certain games he's not going to dominate possession. Manchester United did that Real Madrid team. So defensively, he's going to be exposed a little bit more. Now we've seen the qualities which he has, but at times he's got to get found out a little bit in terms of being able to cover the ground quickly. And what you're going to find with him, you will find those kind of bit of a lunging tackles with him for that reason, because he's not the greatest athlete in the world. And his reading of the game is great. His timing generally of the tackles is very good, a bit like Fabinho, but it has to be, because he hasn't got the ability really to cover the ground, plant his feet and really head in the opposite direction. So it's a little bit all or nothing with him for me at times in terms of his tackling.
I think too you have to bear in mind that with Kroos and Modric, it's like genuinely world-class players that he's playing with all the time. That's not the case at Manchester United until they sign players of a similar standard, and so he's doing more work. He's being asked to do more, and there's going to be instances like this.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Defensively, he's going to be kind of more exposed, and by and large, I think he's done really well. But I think that's small. I wouldn't call him a massive weakness in his game, you know what I mean? But he hasn't got that. He hasn't got that speed of foot like Kante at his best. You know what I mean? Can travel over. Never see Kante on his backside. Yeah. You know, Jordan is great. He doesn't have to be, because he knows he can cover the distance quick. He can plant his feet and he head in the opposite direction just as quick. So yeah, it's just something that he's going to have to factor in. But I agree with you. I didn't see yesterday tackle, but just saw it there this morning. Yeah, just travelling at that kind of speed, you know, the contact with the ball really becomes irrelevant. Like, you know what I mean? So.
It'll be interesting to see if Eric Ten Hag has the Andy Farrell approach of, we welcome the adversity that we're about to face, because it's a 4-game ban now at a key moment in their hunt for top 4 honours, and their record without him so far this season not as good as it is with him in the team.
Wouldn't be great now. So you look at the games that he's missing. So the FA Cup quarter-final against Fulham at home next weekend, and then an away tie against Newcastle, home to Brentford and home to Everton. So the next game he plays will be away to Forest on April 15th in the Premier League. So some key games, as you say, missing for Casemiro. Probably did okay to hold on and get a point, United, considering they were down to 10 men, and there was a bit of an onslaught from Southampton at many stages of that game in the second half as well. So
can we use this as an excuse to... so we're going to do Liverpool next, yeah?
Yeah, we'll do Liverpool next. We'll move on to the red. Yeah, Liverpool first. So I don't know what you've made of this, lads, but it was just bizarre that a team could go from a 7-0 win the previous week against arch rivals to...
It's about the quality of the opposition, really, isn't it?
What, as in they bring you down to their level?
Step up, really, from last week to this week. Isn't that it?
Shots fired to all United fans out there. Virgil van Dijk's performance was cat. He was brutal. Missed a clear-cut header to... I mean, it was easier to score in the first half. For the goal, for Philip Billings' tap in early on, I mean, I don't know what Van Dijk was doing. The defending was... The offside line was for a start, and then, I mean, he almost left it to... was it Andy Robertson at left back? He just kind of stopped moving. Virgil van Dijk, the body language was not great for centre half. Kenny, I mean, come on. I know you lads aren't the most athletic,
but that's happened previously with him, and it's not an inability. I'm talking about maybe Casemiro lacking mobility. You wouldn't say that with Van Dijk. I know people saying his injury and maybe not quite the same, but still, he's a pretty impressive physical specimen. So Yeah, so what you're talking about really is between the ears with Van Dijk, and we've seen it occasionally before with him reared his head. And for me, it comes back to this kind of with him. Probably said it maybe about a year, 18 months ago. With him, the only thing he's got to be careful with is that bit of a God complex which he has in terms of, I tell you what, I'm so good that I'm not really sure I really need to bother with the kind of trivial aspects of this kind of defending lark that I'm being asked to do. That was the only thing I looked at and thought, that's the only thing that can maybe cost you going forward.
Yeah.
So I saw a little bit of that in the goal. I saw the goal again. I didn't see the game live, and the goal rolled in, and I was looking again thinking, oh my God, what's Van Dijk? What's going on there?
Why is he stopped?
Yeah, so basically, what that is, I mean, he's got himself back goal side. He's the deepest defender. All he's got to do is stay in contact with the Bournemouth player, shepherd him away from goal. He's got the speed, doesn't have to dive in. It's pretty basic, bog standard stuff. Show him on his right side to the touchline, blocked across if you can. But you're right, he's kind of it's almost as if I can't be bothered. He saw Robertson in his peripheral vision. Robertson's not in a good position. He's 5 yards ahead of the ball. You know what I mean? But he's thought, I can't be bothered. You go and deal with that. And even then, no intensity to get back to recover back into the penalty box or anything like that. He almost disappears out of the picture, doesn't he? So yeah, that's a mentality thing, Shane, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know what
100%.
I mean?
It was attitude as well.
Exactly. The whole thing rolled into one.
Bit of complacency, and then the Mo Salah penalty, of course, that could have changed the game if that goes in, and Liverpool probably go on to win the match. But terrible penalty. Jesus.
Yeah, but I'm not even buying the terrible penalty. I was watching it from behind, and it was so sweetly struck, that penalty. Did you see the trajectory of it? I mean, you're talking probably 2 or 3 inches when it went past.
Is it possible to sweetly strike a penalty that goes wide and over?
The pureness of the strike. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. The direction he set it out too wide, obviously, but a foot to the right, and that's rattling in the stanchion. The stanchion in the net. But yeah, I mean, obviously that wasn't the issue in terms of the penalty kick. I mean, the Liverpool performance, a massive drop off, but that's been kind of the season, isn't it, for a number of teams, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Tottenham and one or two others. In Manchester United might start experiencing a bit of that over them maybe next 2 to 4 weeks in Casemiro's absence. It's been a funny old season, particularly top end.
The top two are obviously separating themselves, and that's only to be expected. But there was a brief period where Manchester United might have got themselves back into the title race, and then that's just clearly not the case now. So that race for fourth, Manchester United have 50 points, 26 games played. Spurs have a game played more and 2 points less, but they are in fourth. Newcastle have 2 games in hand on Spurs and are 4 points behind, and Liverpool have a game in hand on Spurs and are 6 points behind. And that's really it in terms of who might still make fourth, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it will be, because you can't hang your hat on anybody, and generally you think the team who can put a run together, momentum tail at back end of the season, who can find those 5-6 consecutive wins, will probably be the ones that. But you're looking at the moment, maybe nobody will. None of those teams you've mentioned there, they might just all limp towards the tail end of the season. I think Newcastle are an interesting one. Got the win yesterday. They play United, isn't it? I think it's the first game after the international break. That's going to be a massive game. I think they go to Forest next week, Newcastle. I wouldn't rule them out. I think they can kind of come again as well.
All right, last one is in the red, is the BBC. We're not going to spend too much time on this because I think everything has been said. Really, I don't know if there's anything more. It looks like the BBC are going to roll back. It looks like Gary Lineker is going to be back presenting Match of the Day's coverage of the FA Cup next weekend. It looks like they're going to make some changes to their social media rules. Armando Iannucci was suggesting yesterday, why doesn't Lineker just add these are my views, not the views of the BBC, and the BBC could apologise for overreacting, and away we go. Rishi Sunak was making some kind of peaceful sounding noises about the BBC should really sort this out. The important thing here is, of course, the central issue, and he's right. The central issue is that anyway. Let's not get into that. But
Sunak was asked, and he was on the plane heading over to San Diego to meet with the US president, and he was asked, are you going to meet with Gary Lineker yourself? And he said it's not about any one person, but it kind of is.
Well, certainly the BBC made it about one person, and then his colleagues stepped up, and it turns out
I think Gary Lineker makes it about himself, to be honest with you, a lot of the time. I have to say that. I mean, I don't follow social media, but obviously I'm made aware of the fact he's pretty much got an opinion on pretty much everything that's going on of a social nature. So I think when somebody does that for me, it gives a bit of an insight into the mentality of that particular person and their ego as well when they put themselves front and centre. So I would add that as well. I think he's entitled to his opinion. I understand there's issues there in terms of the impartiality of the BBC, which is a joke anyway, to be honest with you, to suggest there's some bastion of impartiality. But yeah, I'd reserve the right of anybody to have an opinion, even if they're talking absolute nonsense, which I think he was.
Right. OTB AM live with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. I disagree with everything Kenny just said, by the way, but we don't have time because it's time for us to get into the rugby. It's 2 minutes past 8. We're going to take a quick break. Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of OTB. New Braeburn locations are popping up every month, so visit applegreenstores.com/Braeburn to find your nearest Braeburn coffee experience. Up next, Alan Quinlan.